No, I just didn't know if we were sponsoring that company, so I don't want to get myself in trouble. Yes, I want to get myself in trouble. Sure. I've said this a lot that like there's some positions that it's a little easier to play early on, right? Maybe it's wide receiver, maybe it's DB, you know, maybe it's a pass rusher, maybe a running back. But the two that are probably the most difficult to play are quarterback and offensive line. It just is. And I'd probably say tight end is the third most difficult because of the multitude of things that they're asked to do at a really high level every snap, every down, right? And so for an offensive lineman, one, it's being physically able to do it, right? That's like the prerequisite. Are you physically able to do it? Two, then, do you have the background, the foundation from high school or your training to handle the fundamentals and the techniques that are getting asked of you? And then three, can you absorb the playbook? And then four, can you then apply the playbook to all of the components that the defense is posing you with? And so it poses real challenges. And some guys just have that right makeup. I think back to when we were at Alabama, Evan Neal walked in the door, started at left guard. That's the way it went for him. And then his journey went 3 years later, he's a first-round pick. At Alabama the same year, Alex Leatherwood and Jed Wills came in together. Alex Leatherwood started at right guard, I think, as a true freshman. Jed Wills redshirted. 2 years later, Jed Wills is the starting right tackle. Alex Leatherwood's the starting left tackle. Jed Wills leaves early and goes to the NFL draft in the first round. Alex Leatherwood comes back for another year for his senior year, then goes in the first round. So everybody's journey is very uniquely different on the offensive line, but that early on, there's a lot of factors that go into, are they ready to play and play at a high level?
Can you tell? I mean, at this point?
Not yet. I mean, I have indicators that, man, things are adding up, right? You see the physical makeup. I can see them kind of in their conditioning and in their lifting and what those numbers look like. I can see a little bit of the retention of the scheme or the fundamentals and the techniques, because we can be on the field now working with them on those things. But we're, as I jokingly say, we're still in underwear, right? We haven't put on the pads. It hasn't gotten difficult and hard. They haven't seen, moving parts yet from a defense, and haven't had to block a guy that's a 4-year starter who's a great, all those things. So we'll see, we'll keep gathering information as we go. But I will say for all 7 of those guys, they're off to a really good start. I don't, again, I try not to, place expectations on guys before I know what they are, but I'm very pleased with the progress that they've made in a month and a half to get to this point. Yeah, without a doubt. I think the scheme implementation has been big. It's any chance we can get on the grass and coach our guys is a benefit. Any chance that, we can do meetings all day long, but at the end of the day, we're football coaches and they're football players. None of us really like sitting in a small room, on a whiteboard. We like to be on the grass doing what we love to do. And I think players learn better that way this day and age. I think they like being out there. I think there's something about camaraderie that way, that they're seeing guys getting coached and then improving on something that they know we've placed an emphasis on for them. So there's a lot of value to it. I'm glad that the rule got changed the way it did, and I think we've taken pretty good advantage of it. Truthfully, in the interview. Honestly, you could ask CDC or anybody. That was one of the things I said. We need bigger humans in our program. I mean, that's just that, and we need more of them. Just the numbers weren't the way I would have liked it, and the body structure. There was just a lot to it that I just believe in. For me, everybody builds a roster a different way. I just value upfront play and our style of play and a level of physicality that you need to play with. And I think that so much of your team and your program and the identity of that comes through the big people up front. And then I remember talking to Vince after I had been here, and then talking to Casey Studdard when he was here, and that group of guys, when Casey and those guys came, they came because Vince had come, kind of, and they came saying, we were going to be the team that's going to go win a championship, and here's how we're going to do it. And they kind of shouldered that. And sometimes that takes a little bit of the pressure off of the skill players to perform, because when you can just start mauling people, the game's a lot easier. It goes back to kind of the old school simplistic form of football. You just line up and run it. They know you're going to run it, and there's not much you can do about it. So, and then when they commit to stopping the run, now you can do kind of all the other things that you like to do, the fun things, throwing it around and throwing it over their head and all that. So I think there's a lot that goes into that group. It's not just the big people. I think there's a personality that those guys have to have as well.
Question was about buy-in.
You make Gary sound old the way you ask that question. He's not that old, but I don't know if there's just one specific thing. I think sometimes with a guy like Gary, who game planned against me last year, right? One of the bigger things I've learned is just kind of how he looked at our offense and how he looks at our offense and what he would do to try to stop us. Because he's a big picture thinker, and that helps me kind of say, okay, well, we got to make sure that we are checking off these boxes so people can't say we're one dimensional when we do this or when we do that. We try to self-scout as much as we can, but when you have a guy who's actually game planned against you, which PK had done as well when he was at Washington and at Boise, that's kind of why I hired him. Both those guys, I like people that are a thorn in my side, because I think we're pretty good at what we do. And when they can evaluate us and say, hey, this isn't very good, or you could make it harder if you did this or did that, and I take that constructive criticism to heart. And I think that's one way Gary's really helped me. Yeah, I love our room. Probably don't have the numbers where we would love to have it yet. That's something we're going to have to address as we move forward. But the talent level in the room I really like, and we had a really unique class last year with 3 true freshman tight ends, and JT Sanders, Gunnar Helm, and Juan Davis, all varying skill sets. And all 3 of those guys, I thought, did a tremendous job in their first year of just putting in the work. And none of them were finished products. We had a couple veteran players at the position, in Cade Brewer and Wiley and those guys that kind of got us through year one while we were developing those guys. And I thought, we didn't have Juan as much in spring, but we did have Jaleel. I thought the tight end group was a real bright spot for us coming out of spring practice, and continues to be this summer. I think we're a much more versatile unit now. I mean, guys that can do a lot of different things. We're bigger, but yet we're faster, and guys with really good ball skills. So for me, offensively, as much versatility as we can have, when we can be in 12 personnel and line up in empty formations and know that these guys can run routes. When we can get in 12 personnel and you line up in a nickel defense, now we can run the ball at a smaller defensive unit. We can do that. So I'm excited that what these guys are bringing and giving to us. They're all very talented, and we're young. So I think the future is bright there. We just got to get our numbers right. We don't quite have enough bodies at that position right now.
How do you balance the
question is, what is God's result? I think the biggest thing with him is just
it's a challenge, because some would say 11 personnel is our best personnel, right? Some would say 20 personnel is our best personnel with 2 running backs on the field. Some would say 12 personnel is with the tight ends. I've got people in my building right now that argue we should be in more 10 personnel with 4 wide receivers because of the talent there. But I've always held on to this adage, the more things we can do really well, the harder we are to defend. The more things that people have to prepare for to try to stop, and we may highlight 1 or 2 of those packages more one week and then highlight something more the next week. But to do that, we have to be really good at all those things, and then you game plan and you try to do the best that gives yourself the best chance to be successful. Tempo is another piece of that, because there's times we do try to go fast. There's times we try to give the illusion that we're going fast and we're trying to go slow and just see what the defense is in. And there's times that we use motions and shifts and different things to create issues for the defense as well. All of which we're just trying to make it hard on the defense and making sure that we're putting our players in the best position to be successful. So it's nothing really earth-shattering, but we try to build a roster that is very versatile to go do those things. And I think we did a pretty good job of that this offseason. Well, without divulging game plans, I'm going to do my best to answer the question. I think one, you have to have the ability to run the football and block the front. And we struggled at times a year ago just blocking the front to get the ball to the 3 safeties to force those guys to tackle. I think 2, having some patience with A, the play caller, pointing at myself, and then B, the guy that's throwing the ball to get completions against that style of defense. And then 3, you got to take advantage of your opportunities when they present themselves. If you go back to the Arkansas game, we missed some big opportunities in that game that could have changed the complexion of that game. And everybody wanted to blame Hudson Card after the game, but if yes, he might have missed a couple throws, but man, we could have caught a couple balls too. We could have blocked some things better too. That maybe could have changed the complexion of that game, and that's no different than the Iowa State game as well, or Oklahoma State as well, and so on and so forth. So again, I think we've got a formula that we feel like will be pretty successful. That will vary some week to week when we play those styles of team, but it starts up front. You got to be able to block them to get things started. Are you a recruit? No, I'm just kidding. My answer is this. I made a commitment to the University of Texas. This is a premier job at any level in college football, whether it's high school, junior college, or the NFL. And I made a commitment to this university. I committed to coming here and winning championships with these guys. I committed to the kids I'm recruiting into our program. And I've got a lot of unfinished business here at my time in Austin. So I'm looking forward to many, many years of winning championships together with them, with the current players on our team, and with the coaches on our staff.
How Green was when, in terms of now as a comfortability with the offense in the spring, and how far have you seen him, make strides in learning the offense in this offseason?
Well, I think in spring, every day was brand new to him. As much as we tried to install the offense in winter conditioning, every day of spring practice was new to him. It was a brand new system. It was a brand new scheme. One thing I credit him on was when there was something that he needed to really focus on and work on, he put in the work. I've said this a lot about Quinn. He is a very coachable guy, and he tries to do what we ask him to do, and he works at it. And so you see it now in the summer to where a lot of the things that may have been an issue in spring ball aren't nearly as much of an issue now in the summer. And so it just continues growth, right? But again, he loves the game. He loves to play quarterback. He wants to be coached. He wants to be coached hard. And he wants to work at his craft. And you see the work that he's putting in because the play is improving. Yeah, I think Coach Venable's a great coach. I think he's a really good defensive mind. His teams always play extremely hard. They're tough. They're smart. I think Brett is a really good motivator. He gets his guys ready to play. I think it's a great opportunity. Myself going into year 2, him in year 1, that the Red River Showdown has got something that will continue to be special for years to come. Well, I think anytime you're supposed to be a senior in high school and you reclassify and decide to go to college in the middle of training camp when a team's already started training camp, and you show up on that campus and none of the players in that locker room were part of your recruiting class, none of the connections were forged, you've already a step behind in learning a system and a scheme, and you want to go in and compete, it's just not the experience that you were hoping for. That's not your traditional experience. In comparison to forging and developing really good relationships with kids in your recruiting class, everybody showing up, moving into your dorm the same day, going out to practice and having your struggles because the system's new, but so's the guy in the locker next to you because it's his first day as well, that you got people to lean on. I just don't think that he had that experience. And so I think he got that here in January, and I think he got a college experience of one that he's relishing in and enjoying. Yeah, I think a lot of what we did with the running backs last year, we dabbled in it. We dabbled in some 20 personnel. We dabbled in, Bijan being split out. We dabbled with Keelan being moved around. We dabbled with Roshan being moved around and playing some Wildcat. We just want to make sure that we're expanding on the strengths of our players. And Bijan is a natural route runner. He's a natural pass receiver. We want to make sure that we're putting him in position to be successful. And so, I love it that he wants more of that, because he is not a guy that Bijan could very easily say, hey, I'm good, man. I can run the ball. I got a great stiff arm. I can make people miss. He wants more. He wants to expand his game. And I think Coach Choice has been a really good addition for him on that, because he's willing to want more, and Coach Choice has given him more of that. And I think it's going to be something that's going to help his career, not just at Texas, but for his future. I think there's two sides to this fence. One is, I like it that we don't have to lead with an NIL pitch. I like it that we lead with the University of Texas pitch. I like it that we lead with a program pitch. I like it that we lead with a relationship pitch. I like it that we lead with a team camaraderie and a team bonding pitch. And in the end, if NIL gets brought up, kids aren't choosing to come to University of Texas because of NIL. They're choosing to come to University of Texas because of all these other things. And I get it. Other schools can lead with that, and that's a great recruiting tool for them. But I sure feel like for the future of our program and our locker room, that we're getting kids in our program that love and want to come to University of Texas because they love it, and that's what it's all about, and that's what it should be about. And NIL should then become a byproduct of it. And Bijan is the great example of it, right? His name, image, and likeness has presented opportunities for him because of exactly that, his name, image, and likeness, and he's taken advantage of it, and he's done it in a really classy way. So I kind of like the fact that we can't lead with that as our pitch. I kind of like that, man. We've got a great product at the University of Texas, from the city of Austin, our education, our football program, the history and tradition, life after football, the power of the degree, our living alumni, 550,000 living alumni, some prominent people that can be there for you to enhance your career when life is done. I think we're pretty good mentors of men and what life can look like and overcoming adversity and telling real life stories and how you can overcome those things. That, to me, those things go a lot further than a few dollars.
Yeah, that's I think, look, my preference would be to 15 minutes into
Yeah, I think Roshan Johnson is the epitome of what a teammate should look like. That he's willing to do anything for the team. That his discipline, his commitment, his accountability, his toughness, all exudes team in everything that he does. I mean, the guy is a backup running back. He gets 2 starts last season and goes for over 100 yards in both games. He starts on 4 special teams. He's the first guy to stand up to talk to the team when we're in the middle of a crisis or in the middle of some adversity. And he's earned and demanded the respect of his teammates. And in turn, his peers in that locker room see the value that he has in our organization, and guys want to be like him. Guys are starting to act like him, and that's how you start to get a team first mentality in your locker room. It's not just about one guy anymore. I don't have to talk just about Roshan Johnson anymore. There's a reason Ovi's here. There's a reason DeMarvion's here. There's a reason Jordan Whittington's here doing a whole nother campaign for the University of Texas. Why he's here. I want to brag on Jordan Whittington. Here's a guy who's gotten hurt every year. Here's a guy who last season's leading our team in receiving. Didn't blink, fought back, has worked his tail off to come back from injury, graduates from the University of Texas, didn't go anywhere, continues to work, had the best offseason he's had in his career, and has put himself in position to be a great teammate for us to go win a championship this fall. So it's now grown more than Roshan, but Roshan was the start of it. There's more guys like him in our program that inevitably now that's the trickle-down effect into our younger players on our team. Yeah, I'm not quite sure where you're going, but I'm going to answer it. So here we go. So here's my thing for the guys that cover me every day. I'm pretty consistent in my messaging with what I do. I'm very consistent with our team. I'm very consistent with you guys in the media because I want the message to be consistent to our fans, to our donors, to the entire University of Texas. And when I took the job, I talked about this on stage, but a mentor of mine said, there's 2 ways to go when you take over a program, and you can do it. The easy way to do it would be to do it in a way that was very similar to the last guy and the last staff. That'll make the transition easier for the players. That'll make things a little bit more smoother. That'll make life a little easier for everybody. But in the end, you better be willing to accept similar results. Or you can go and say, hey, I'm going to go do it my way. And when you do it your way, you're probably going to have more attrition. You're probably going to have more players that don't buy into the core values of what mattered to you and to your program. There's probably going to be some bumps in the road. There's probably going to be some rough waters. But when you come out on the other side, you've got a team full of guys that have completely bought into what you believe in. And so I don't think that it's not a coincidence that, yes, we had a rough season last year, but that we've had a good off season, and that I expect us to have a good season this fall, because that's part of the process of which we decided to go about our business.
Sorry, on that note, the team building, guys talked about Wednesdays where they get into groups and share their life stories. Where did that come from? And we talked about trying to get the guys more connected, obviously that's
Yeah, where it came from for me is, I've always done things like this in year 2. I just don't feel like in year 1 I've earned enough trust for that to happen. And, the young men, 18 to 22-year-olds, and men in general, we're very guarded individuals, right? We don't like to become vulnerable. We don't like to expose ourselves. We don't like to, offer up a life full of transparency and honesty. And so because of that, we have to earn trust, one. Two, when we get into those settings, I always go first. I always set the stage of whatever it is in my story or answering questions that we want to get answered. And I do that in front of the team. And because I think, in my opinion, when the players see me become vulnerable, transparent, open, honest, and then when we go to our breakout rooms, I don't ask guys to stand up in front of the entire team. We do it in 10 subgroups of about 10 to 12 players. It's a lot easier for them to do that amongst their peers once I've shared my story. And there's probably times they're sitting in that room and their jaws are wide open, like, I can't believe he just said that to us. But because I've been able to do that and I've been consistent with that, it's gave them the platform to go do the same with their peers. And now you have some empathy towards teammates from one another of what guys are going through or why they play the game or why this is so important to them. That ultimately it starts to create that bond. And it's been really effective, in my opinion. We're light years ahead of where we were a year ago from a team chemistry standpoint. And I love to hear the fact that our players are talking about that openly and publicly, because it's a really big deal to me. We shake it up every week. It's every week it's something different, something new.
Are there points where college football realized it can be detrimental?
I don't think so. I really don't. And for the guys that cover us on a regular basis, I love the pageantry of college football, and I've loved it since I was a kid. I've never, I loved watching the great rivalry games. I loved watching every bowl game. I don't watch like just the big ones. I watch every bowl game, and I still do every chance I get. I think there's something about a team's reward at the end of the season to play one more game. And I'm hopeful with realignment we don't lose those things. We don't lose some of these great rivalries that we've had throughout our time. And I have some as a kid that I can vividly remember that, man, I just think they mean too much to the game, and we've got a beautiful game. But I also know that with realignment, change is inevitable, right? And I had an old boss tell me, you either adapt or die. There's a reason dinosaurs aren't on this earth anymore. And so we have to continue to adapt from a football and college football perspective of where our game is headed. The branding of our game is better than it's ever been. The exposure for our game is better than it's ever been. You guys all do a tremendous job covering our game. And now it's led itself to more opportunities for more teams and for more conferences, and the commissioners and the presidents and the athletic directors, everybody's trying to put their universities and their conferences in the best position, in the best light to be successful. And I think it's all in the best interest of the players. And so whether it's transfer portal, NIL, conference realignment, we can keep trying to put a negative connotation and a negative spin on these things. In the end, they're all for the betterment of our game. And yes, there's some things that we need to work through that we're continuing to work through. But as we come through all of this, our game will continue to get better because of it. The coverage for our game will be better because of it. The exposure for our game will be better because of it. And we'll continue to celebrate college football like we always have for decades.
I feel like it's generational. A lot of the younger guys that are bringing your guys on the team, maybe less importance of that as a game, but less necessarily pageantry, but the regionality of the overall rivalry.
Well, I think so. I think it starts in recruiting. A long time ago, players never left their region to go play in other schools and other conferences. It was all very localized. I think with the power of the internet, and then with the power of social media, exposure came to more players. And now players are tripping to more schools that aren't just in their region, and then they're going to the schools that aren't in their region. And because of that, I don't think people are as localized just to their school, and then naturally it's spread and it's become more broad. For a Tua Tagovailoa to go from Honolulu, Hawaii to go to Tuscaloosa, Alabama to play quarterback, that was a big deal. That was a big deal for me to recruit him. That was a big deal at that time. But that's no different than a lot of what's happening in recruiting and where guys are going. They're not just going to the hometown school anymore. So in turn, from conference realignment, well, why can't we go play schools in Florida? Why we're going to recruit there anyway? Why can't California, that USC and UCLA go play schools in the Midwest and vice versa? They're recruiting those places anyway, so why aren't we just playing them on those stages to begin with?
The defensive line needs to be the strength of your defense, and what do they do to improve?
Yeah. I think the defensive line should be the strength of any defense, but not just ours. I think, like offensive football, I think defensive football starts up front. You got to have the ability to stop the run. You got to have the ability to defeat your man that lines up across from you, and you have to have the ability to affect the quarterback. One thing I've been proud of our guys in watching them throughout spring ball and now into the summer, I think the rapport with Coach Davis has been tremendous. I think it took a little bit of time for them to really trust and develop that relationship with him. He's a great developer of talent. He's a great developer of young men. And I think the buy-in to Coach Davis has been the start of that. And in turn, you're seeing just better quality of play out of those guys up front right now. Now, we got to do it in training camp, and then ultimately we've got to put it on the field in the fall. But I think we're moving in the right direction there. Well, recruiting quarterbacks is this. It's the most important position in sports. It's most important because they have the biggest task every Saturday or every Sunday they take the field. But it's also the most important because they have the biggest task every day they walk in that locker room. Because quarterbacks instill hope and belief in the rest of the team that we're going to be okay. And most kids like hope. Most kids like belief. Most kids like to know they're going to go play with somebody that has got championship pedigree to be great. And so anytime we recruit a quarterback, it's not always just about how far they can throw it or how tall or how fast they are. It's about do they embody all of those things to be a quarterback. And you can look to Tom Brady. There's a reason Tom Brady's Tom Brady. How does he go from New England and winning all those Super Bowls and then go to Tampa Bay and win a Super Bowl? Right? There's something about the position. Joe Montana, these guys that have done it at the highest level, Joe Burrow for that matter. Just pointing out different examples, but they have an impact on the rest of the players in that locker room, and clearly they have an impact on the rest of the players in their recruiting class. Yes, Kurt, go ahead. I don't know if he ups his game or not. I think Coach Saban, first of all, is a very smart man. He's a very, very smart man. And he doesn't forget things. He doesn't forget things maybe from a practice or a scrimmage that was a problem. Maybe we need to prepare for this. Or he doesn't forget conversations about something that was said about maybe it was a defensive coach that was on his staff that, hey, this would be a problem if they did this. Well, guess what? When you go play them, they do that, right? So he's a very smart man. He puts in the time, he puts in the effort, and it's I've always appreciated that about him. He's very coy in his approach. You guys see the hard, tough Nick Saban, but he's very coy, and he's a sly fox in a lot of ways in the way he goes about his business. Yeah, I think, the natural thing is you want to affect the quarterback more. But it's hard to affect the quarterback when you're giving up easy completions and the ball's coming out so quickly. So the first order of business was, how do we play tighter coverage in the back end to complement a better pass rush? And so we try to move people around into different spots and do some things schematically that would allow us to play tighter coverage that could help the pass rush, but also in turn continue to develop that pass rush to where we can get third down stops and then create more turnovers, especially late in games. All right, guys, thank you. Guys, travel safe, okay?